Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the North Carolina Sports Network and this new look version of the David Glenn Show. Thank you for being with us here in late September or perhaps early October as football season, college and pro, continues to dominate the headlines. Major League Baseball is concluding its marathon 162-game regular season and finally launching into playoff mode. NASCAR's playoffs are down to a dozen drivers and will be down to 8 after its October 8th stop at the Charlotte Motor Speedway road course. The National Hockey League's preseason is officially underway, with your Carolina Hurricanes among the NHL's favorites this time around. The Ryder Cup of Golf, one of my favorite all-time events in all of sports, is finally here. The National Basketball Association's preseason is just a week away. And another of our favorite pursuits here across North Carolina, college basketball, is less than 1 month out from the Atlantic Coast Conference's annual media extravaganza in Charlotte, where John Shire's Duke team and Hubert Davis's UNC squad are expected to be among the favorites. Here on the David Glenn Show, we'll also catch up with, among many others, Kevin Keatts of NC State, Steve Forbes of Wake Forest, and Tony Bennett of UVA, while we're at that big event in Charlotte, of course. Right now in our state, there's a lot more good news in the college football ranks than there is in the NFL, where the Carolina Panthers are off to an ugly 0-3 start during the brand new Frank Reich, Bryce Young era. I say ugly because Reich is a longtime offensive guru, and the Panthers traded up to take Young, the former Alabama quarterback and Heisman Trophy winner, with the number 1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft. Yet Carolina, while as expected, pretty solid on defense so far, looks like one of the most hapless offensive teams in the league and is already 2 full games behind the 2-1 Falcons, 2-1 Saints, and 2-1 Buccaneers in the NFC South. The 0-3 Panthers ranked dead last in this week's NFL Power Rankings at ESPN.com and other places, after that Andy Dalton-led loss at Seattle last week when Young was out with an ankle injury. Those Panthers host the 0-3 Minnesota Vikings on Sunday afternoon. Although we'll also be getting into some college football, baseball, hockey, golf, and perhaps other fun topics today, our special guest on this edition of the David Glenn Show is someone who has both a special personal story to tell as one of the greatest Carolina Panthers players of all time, but also some special insights to share on Panthers owner David Tepper, new head coach Frank Reich, new QB Bryce Young, and many other fun and important topics, including leadership, given his front row seat in Charlotte as a member of the franchise's broadcasting team over these last 5 seasons. Today's featured guest, Jake Delhomme, has the best winning percentage as a starting quarterback in Carolina Panthers history at almost 60%. And he ranks second to only Cam Newton among Panthers quarterbacks in both career starts and career wins, plus a bunch of the franchise's most important passing categories. Unlike Bryce Young, Jake was undrafted out of college. Also, unlike Young, Jake got to learn the ropes as a professional quarterback for 5 years before he was ever asked to be a full-time starting QB in the NFL, although he did help a European team win the World Bowl during that time. When Jake finally got that opportunity to start in the NFL in 2003, he immediately, meaning in his very first season as a full-time NFL starting quarterback, led your Carolina Panthers to the playoffs, then 3 postseason victories, and ultimately the Super Bowl, where Carolina did fall in the final seconds to the New England Patriots in a sensational game that legendary sports writer Peter King called at the time, quote, the greatest Super Bowl ever played. Carolina Panthers legend Jake Delhomme, who grew up in a Cajun family in Louisiana while helping raise horses and learning to play football, still all these years later has both horses and football as important parts of his life. Jake will join us shortly here on the DG Show. Meanwhile, in college football, Duke and UNC are both 4-0 and ranked in the national top 20, which is a true rarity for a pair of rivals much more famous for their high-level success in men's basketball and other sports. If you're enjoying those stories, please search our YouTube channel here at the North Carolina Sports Network to find our recent interviews with Duke coach Mike Elko, star quarterback Riley Leonard, and star defensive tackle Dwayne Carter, plus North Carolina star linebacker Cedric Gray, and next week, the Tar Heels Hall of Fame head coach Mack Brown, who will join us one-on-one here on the David Glenn Show. Number 15 Carolina is off this week, but the number 17 Blue Devils are hosting number 11 Notre Dame on Saturday night at Wallace Wade Stadium in a huge game that, like the Blue Devils' shocking season opening victory over the perennial power Clemson Tigers, comes with another massive national TV spotlight, this time on ABC. Meanwhile, for the first time ever, ESPN's popular Saturday morning game day show with Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard, and friends also is right here in Durham. Although they've been doing their version of that traveling circus for more than 30 years now, this trip to Duke is only the 9th game day visit ever to North Carolina soil. Duke finally gets to join App State, UNC, NC State, and Wake Forest as the in-state campuses that have hosted game day. The show also has been in the city of Charlotte 4 times, including earlier this season, leading up to North Carolina's win over South Carolina at Bank of America Stadium. If you get a chance, check out my recent article on this exact game day topic at our website, ncsportsnetwork.com. As we settle in with Jake Delhomme, and as we offer some quick thanks to our quickly growing list of local and statewide sponsors and partners, without whom we wouldn't be here with you today, we're thrilled to announce here at the North Carolina Sports Network that we have 2 new sponsors. As the North Carolina business world's reaction to our new sports media enterprise continues to be off the charts and frankly way ahead of schedule. Right here in Raleigh, one of my favorite restaurants for many years has been The Oak, Scratch Kitchen and Bourbon Bar. It's located on Lake Boone Trail, which happens to be a perfect location for a great meal and beverage if you're on your way to nearby Carter Finley Stadium or perhaps PNC Arena for a concert, a Wolfpack or Hurricanes game, or some other event. The menu is incredibly tasty and creative. The atmosphere is a lot of fun. The bourbon options are as high-end and varied as you'll find anywhere. The staff is super classy and first rate, and I've always just loved the people, the food, and the overall vibe there. When I took Carolina Hurricanes owner Tom Dundon to lunch, yes, meaning the billionaire who owns the hockey team, I took him to the Oak. Seriously, it's that good. Learn more or make a reservation by visiting their website, theoakraleigh.com. That's THEOAK Raleigh.com. Special thanks to Nick and Haley and their team for joining the family here at the David Glenn Show and the new North Carolina Sports Network. Our other new partner can help anyone, anywhere. I know I'm a better person and a more effective business owner for having known and learned from Emily Parks over many years now. Emily's company, Organize for Success, helps multi-passionate business owners and executives bring harmony to all the layers of their lives, from work to side projects, from friends and family to hobbies, community, and beyond. With Emily's help, you too can make every minute matter. She helps you determine what earns your time and how to efficiently accomplish what matters. One of the many things I love about Emily is that she doesn't impose her will on her clients. She listens to them. That way, she can better help them cultivate the lives they want to live. You can set up a complimentary call with Emily today by visiting organizeforsuccess.com. That's organize, F-O-R, success.com. Okay, on the other side, a man who led the Carolina Panthers to the Super Bowl in his first year as their starting quarterback. He's a fascinating guy with lots of great stories to tell, both from his playing days and his time more recently getting to know Panthers owner David Tepper, new Panthers coach Frank Reich, and the Panthers rookie quarterback Bryce Young. Panthers legend and Panthers broadcaster Jake Delhomme is our guest next on The David Glenn Show.
What does it mean when people say America is a land of opportunity?
It means the power to discover,
To redefine yourself.
To improve yourself.
to challenge yourself.
To realize there's more in you
Than you ever knew.
that you could do.
It means giving people an open field to explore what they do best.
With the best tools,
The best training.
the best technology in the world.
We bring out the best in the people who serve.
So you can be
All you can be.
Okay, without further ado, our next guest has the best winning percentage as a starting quarterback in Carolina Panthers history at almost 60%. And he ranks second to only that Cam Newton guy in career QB starts for the Panthers and a whole bunch of the franchise's other most important passing categories. In 2003, his first year with the Panthers, he led them to the postseason and 3 straight playoff victories, 2 of them on the road, plus a trip to the Super Bowl where Carolina fell to the New England Patriots 32-29 on a field goal in the final seconds. He has been part of the Panthers radio team since 2019, the same year he was inducted into the franchise's prestigious Hall of Honor. Jake Delhomme, welcome back to the David Glenn Show, and welcome to the new North Carolina Sports Network. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, those stats. That's when I hear that, it's awesome. It means that I play with a lot of good players and played on some good teams. That's what it means, and that's how maybe I look at it. You know, you appreciate how good of the teams we really had.
Well, I know you're a self-deprecating type of personality, so I'm going to ask you really only one question that forces you to go back into the archives. When you were growing up in a Cajun family in Louisiana, where I remember you saying, Jake, a lot of the young boys there were into hunting and fishing and other things, you were mostly into horses and football, which are both a huge part of your life here in your late 40s as a businessman and a broadcaster. How do you describe those early years? Because they obviously ended up leading to great things in at least 2 different areas for you personally.
Well, listen, it was sport. It was all sports and the racehorses. You know, that's something that I'm third generation. And where I grew up, my parents, we lived on 15 acres. And, you know, Dad had a barn behind the house. He trained some horses on the side. He worked for the state. And my grandfather was an old cattleman, an old farmer, spoke better French than English. And, you know, that was just kind of our way of life. You know, you went to school, you had to make good grades, played sports, and if I wasn't doing that, I was in the barn. It's just something that we grew up doing. It was a love, a passion of mine. And certainly once football finished, I could kind of expand on that. And it's a very it's a humbling sport, to say the least. As an owner, if you win 20% of the time in horse racing, you're doing well. That's pretty humbling. I mean, you have to really grind that way and work at it. And that's something that I love to do. It helps fill that competitive void. I know once I finish playing football, there's something about competing. There's just something that maybe that's my drug of choice. That's what I enjoy. So yeah, I get to do that, and then I certainly get to call some games on the radio for the Panthers, and that's a place that's just so near and dear to my heart, and I love to try to see our Panthers do well.
We're going to get into that broadcasting in just a little bit, but tell me this, true or false, as a high school player in football in Louisiana, you did make the all-state team, but I once read you made it as a defensive player, not as a quarterback. Is that true?
Yeah, I think I was like second team quarterback or honorable mention, whatever, but I made it as a safety. I had a bunch of interceptions that I caught, not that I threw. I might have thrown a couple, but I had a bunch. At that time, we were a single A football team. That's the smallest classification at that time in high school. And so you had to go both ways. I mean, it's just the way it was. And so things worked out well. The playoffs really worked out well for me. I really kind of never came off the field once the playoffs started, and I was able to accumulate a fair chunk, I guess you could say, in the playoffs.
So before we get to know you in the NFL, you have this great career not far from home at Southwestern Louisiana. We now call it Louisiana Lafayette. But then you do go undrafted in the NFL draft. You're signed with New Orleans. I've heard you say many times, sometimes when you're discussing the Bryce Young story, that you were absolutely positively not ready to play in the NFL as a rookie. How do you describe those biggest factors that must have been just freezing your brain as you're trying to make this leap from very good college quarterback to this new world we call the NFL?
Well, it was just so different. I mean, you're talking back, 1995, 96, the fall of my senior year. The internet, it's really not happening, to be quite honest. And all the games, the games weren't televised on TV the way they are now. Maybe we had a couple of televised games in my 4 years in college, and things were so different. And everything was kind of, all the focus for the majority was on the big schools and things like that. And so I know I wasn't ready. I started all 4 years in college, and being undrafted and not invited to the combine and things of that nature, I wasn't ready to play. And the NFL, that wasn't the it factor, the it deal, so to speak. I mean, guys they got drafted and they sat and they learned because it was such a learning curve. And so I know I just wasn't ready. And I think a lot had to do, I'm not saying I couldn't have gotten ready quicker. Coaching staff wise in New Orleans, Mike Ditka was the head coach. It was kind of an influx of what we wanted to do offensively. It seemed like it changed year in and year out. There wasn't a kind of a steady stream of true, really good football being taught. And then once Jim Haslett came in 2000, he hired Mike McCarthy as the offensive coordinator. It was Mike's first time being a coordinator, and he was fantastic. And that's when I guess you could say the true football mind opened up. All the things we did in the offseason with this quarterback school that really and truly you can't do anymore due to the CBA rules and hours that guys cannot participate in because there's just these new rules. So I was lucky enough to be a part of that. And then I felt I was ready. In the year 4, I was ready to play. But my first few years, definitely not, and certainly not as a rookie.
We're lucky to have you here in North Carolina really forever because of the Hall of Honor, but as a broadcaster, obviously. And we did have you for those 7 years wearing a Panthers uniform. Prior to that, in addition to what you just mentioned with the Saints organization, there was 1 year as Kurt Warner's backup in NFL Europe. There's a guy who goes on to be, a Super Bowl MVP. And there's another year where you lead your European football team to the 1999 World Bowl Championship. How does that kind of stuff prepare you for the success that you ended up having here really right away in Charlotte with the Panthers?
Well, I think the whole NFL Europe bit was fantastic because there wasn't a place, there's no minor leagues in the NFL. And so guys got allocated over, and the Saints sent over, a few guys, and quarterback's a position you want to send over. You want to send some young, raw offensive linemen, in my opinion, a young, raw defensive end type of guy. You want to send over a receiver that might have went to, at that time, a 1AA school, didn't face that competition, but had a lot of ability. I think those positions really and truly it helped you, and kickers and punters and things like that. And so I got sent over, Kurt Warner. He was Kurt Warner, the Arena League quarterback. He was the MVP of the Arena League. He was 26 at the time. I think I was 21. I might have just turned 22. And this was his one more shot to try to make it because he went to the Packers out of college, Northern Iowa. He was a one-year starter in college. And he said, Jake, I couldn't call a play. I was so nervous. I wasn't ready. The bright lights, I guess you could say, were too big. And, he started doing the arena bit, and that kind of just parlayed itself. And he said, I have one more chance. And St. Louis Rams sent him over. And, so it's a blow to the ego for myself because if I can't start in NFL Europe, what makes me think I can make it in the NFL? But I just thought this guy's pretty damn good. I mean, he's got a quick release. He's extremely accurate, and he's a great guy. And so, the following year, we both made the team in our respective places. And then, it was the year after that, he became Kurt Warner as we know it now. And so that gave me a lot of confidence because I got sent back over again in 1999, Frankfurt Galaxy, played. We did well. We were able to win it all. And I love those young developmental leagues. I think it's truly a help. I'm very happy to see that the XFL and the USFL are merging. I think it was too much this spring. I think the merging of those two, you can have 6 quality football teams, and that can help develop guys and get some guys some opportunities to get live repetitions. You cannot make up for live repetitions. And so I know I'm thankful for that league and many players in the NFL that have gone on, especially quarterbacks that have gone on and played many years. So I'm glad to see that. But, yeah, that's all part of the journey.
So Kurt Warner ends up excelling on the biggest stage, and you did as well starting in 2003. I don't know if you crossed paths with Peter King, but I consider him one of the greatest sports writers covering the NFL ever. He actually called your Super Bowl between the Panthers and the Patriots. At the time, he called it the greatest Super Bowl of all time. And he was not talking about Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction with Justin Timberlake during the halftime show, which is something other people remember. Y'all had 19 points just in the fourth quarter against a Bill Belichick coach team, and you barely lose to a guy named Tom Brady. That sounds like a lot of good. I wonder if you ever think about it in positive ways. Do you have more positive memories than what if memories? Because a lot of people remember that Super Bowl for a lot of different reasons.
Without a doubt, more positive memories. Without a doubt. Now, listen, it's been 20 years, so it's been a while since that season. Or we're coming up on 20 years this February. But, I think at the time there's a lot of you're so young. I was thinking I was 28, body's in great shape, prime of my career, I guess you could say. And it's like, we're going to get back. There's no doubt we're going to get back. We just had a taste of what it is. And, you don't get back. And we got close 2 years later. We lost in a championship game. But the more that I've kind of recollected on that, and it's always during Super Bowl week that you think about it, because NFL Network will always play the Super Bowl games. And I have numerous friends and family that will always send a text, hey, watching the game. And I always respond with, let me know if we win it this time. Just hoping this dream could come true. But, great memories, just everything about it, leading up to it. But you go back to the memories of that season and the games we won, the games we pulled out, beating Dallas at home in the playoffs, so a rocking crowd in Bank of America Stadium, going on the road in St. Louis, beating them in double overtime, going to Philly, beating Philly in the NFC Championship game. Those are the things that you kind of remember. You remember the week in Houston, the practices leading up to it. And I don't think enough gets talked about how great and not good, how great New England's defense was that we faced. If you go back and look statistically, they were one of the all-time defenses that year. Yeah, Tom's the greatest to ever play. Really good. But their offense, they weren't known for their offense yet. It wasn't the New England offense yet. Yes, they were good, but nothing compared to that defense, the Hall of Famers they had on that defense. And for us just to kind of bang our head for the majority of that game, to finally kind of break through, it was a testament to who we were, kind of our mantra as the team, the Cardiac Cats and the whole Sam Mills, keep pounding. I mean, that's who we were. And those are the memories you think about. And, man, that was a great season. That was a lot of fun.
Quick side note, I grew up in Philadelphia before relocating to North Carolina. So in the build-up to that, my family, filled with Eagles fans, was asking me about you and the Panthers. I didn't know you at the time, but you broke my heart because you never lose your childhood team, but I couldn't be mad at you because everybody I know considers you such a good guy. So I was happy for you, and the Panthers kind of were my adopted team. I've been here since before the Panthers were born, actually. But that was a weird day of mixed emotions for me, and of course, a huge part of your unforgettable career. I wonder, you're in the Hall of Honor now with the Panthers. David Tepper is this fascinating guy to me. I mean, he's like one of the wealthiest owners in all of professional sports, obviously incredibly successful in the business world. He doesn't seem like a fundamentally patient guy, but he hasn't had any winning records since he took over in 2018. I'm sure you guys aren't regular like golf or dinner buddies, but what have you observed in him and his personality in your 4 or 5 years here back in Charlotte? Because it seems like an odd combination of a guy who can't wait to win and is intense and passionate, but this might be a season that, as you've said, requires some patience for Bryce Young and otherwise.
Yeah, listen, I've gotten to know Mr. Tepper, David. I like to think pretty well. And one thing that I believe this, and I know this from the bottom of my heart, he just wants to win. And he's going to do any and everything and try to provide any and everything necessary to enable the Carolina Panthers to win. That's a fact. There's no greater singular focus that he has than to try to make the Carolina Panthers a consistent winner year in and year out. It's not a company line. I know it. I see it. I see what he has provided for the team. What do we need to get better? What can make us just a little bit better? He's talked about it numerous times. This league is made to be 8-8. Everybody, they want parity in the NFL. That's why it's so popular. What can we do to try to make us, just a little bit better? Yes, we haven't had the success on the field since he's taken over. I get that. We all get it. We have to acknowledge it. I truly believe, we made the big jump to get Bryce. Gave up a lot to get him. There's no doubt. Yes, this season hasn't started the way the Panthers have wanted to. He looks to be a kid that we can move forward with. I believe that. I know he only has 2 games. I get it. But just seeing him, being around him, watching him, I think the pieces are there. Now we just need to keep on building this football team. It's going to require a little bit of patience. There'll be some growing pains. That's always the case. And hopefully when we can look back in 5 years from now, hey, that was the right move. They've done the right thing. They built it up the right way. And listen, sometimes it's you want immediate success. It doesn't happen. You just got to continue to build, and then things happen. So, but back to Mr. Tepper, he and Nicole, I'm just telling you, seeing it firsthand. And yeah, I know I still live in Louisiana and I'm not in the building every day, but I'm around enough and talk to enough people there. It's not a meddling owner that is, just wanting to fire everybody. He wants to do what's right and build and give you every resource possible to make Carolina a consistent winner year in and year out.
I believed you this summer when you said it's not a company line. I'm just telling you, it's hard for rookie quarterbacks, not just Bryce Young, but just period, rookie quarterbacks. And you probably know some of these stats. It's crazy. If you go back to just number one overall picks since the 60s, there's one quarterback who had a winning record. It was Andrew Luck, like 10 or so years ago, right? And even guys who ended up in the Hall of Fame or Super Bowl champions, I've heard you mention, wasn't it Peyton Manning went 3-13 or something?
Correct.
Without getting into that history, back to Bryce Young quickly. What have you observed, more specifically, from him, either as a leader or X's and O's or football IQ or whatever you think is required in the job? What did you see either in the preseason or in those two starts before he got hurt?
I just think his mental capacity. I believe he has anticipation and accuracy, and those are two things that has to be paramount. If you're building a quarterback, I mean, if I'm going to have like 3, 4, 5 pillars, anticipation and accuracy, they have to be near the top, because you got to throw with anticipation. You have to be accurate. Yes, you want to talk about arm strength all you want. That's fine and dandy. I watched Drew Brees for years put up yards that we can't even add up with anticipation and accuracy. And they got rid of him in San Diego after year 4. They didn't want him. So that just goes to show you it takes time. It takes time in this league. But Bryce has that. And just watching the players, how they react to him, the believability in his eyes when he calls a play. Guys know if they can follow you or they can't follow you. Players know. They're not that dumb. They know. And they truly believe in this young kid. And yes, we're 0-3 to start the season. Bryce is 0-2 as a starter. I get it. It's going to take time. You go back, you talked about Andrew Luck. They drafted Andrew, meaning the Colts, because Peyton Manning got hurt. And that team had the number 1 overall pick. But that team was a Super Bowl favorite going into the year Peyton got hurt. So that was a good roster. It was not a bad roster. So he went into a pretty good roster with some Hall of Fame caliber receivers and running backs and things of that nature and a good old line. So it's going to take some time.
As that guy with Philly roots, I appreciated what Frank Reich did while on the Eagles offensive staff. I was actually in Minneapolis when the Eagles won a Super Bowl, like the only one of my entire lifetime that they've won, and I was there with my son in person. So it was impactful just on a personal level. But now this guy, of course, had 2 playoff years as a head coach with the Indianapolis Colts. Through the eyes of a quarterback yourself, what do you see from Frank Reich, his history, his offense, that allows you to tell Panthers fans to be optimistic about his tenure in Charlotte?
Well, listen, it's starting off rough, and there's no doubt. When you're 0-3, you think the world's coming to an end, and all the fans will think that way. The players are frustrated. I'll keep saying it. It's going to take some time. Listen, we gave up a number 1 wide receiver. We've got some young guys that we're trying to start to work into the mix. We're struggling kind of running the ball right now. And so that's not a great recipe for success to truly get your offense off the ground. One-dimensional is not the way to go. So, listen, we want to be multiple. And what I mean by that is that we want to use different formations, different personnels, not necessarily formations, more personnels. And we want to challenge you. And we want to kind of threaten what you do defensively from all kind of different looks, horizontally, vertically, things of that nature. And whatever your strength is, we want to maximize that and do what you do best. I'm just not sure. Well, obviously we haven't hit yet. I don't think there's any doubt. And you've seen some flashes, like, against Seattle. There were some flashes that we saw, but we couldn't run the ball. We couldn't run the ball at all. And so that's going to take time. Again, I know I keep using this word. There's going to be growing pains this year. There's going to be growing pains. I said it before the season because that's just the way it is. Now we're battling the injury bug some, but that's just part of it. It's gonna take time to get those pieces in place. But they're a very, very good coaching staff, and if we can get the players, I think we can kind of go in the right direction.
Carolina Panthers legend Jake Delhomme, now broadcaster for the Panthers, is joining us on the David Glenn Show. I don't think a rookie quarterback could do this, but I once read that you, as a veteran quarterback, it might have even been after your time with the Panthers, there's a young offensive lineman just getting scorched in practice. He might have had 3 or 4 false starts in a row. It looked like, the way I heard the story, the guy was humiliated. He might have been on the verge of tears. The coaches are all after him. And as the story goes, you, the veteran quarterback, step in and say, "Hey, coach, that false start was on me, man. I don't know what was in your mind, but that's a big heart, man." And then there's some leadership lessons there. Do you recall that, and what was it all about?
Yeah, I do. I remember that like yesterday. It was I had signed with the Houston Texans. I thought I was retired. Like I said, I was 2011. I'm 37 or 38, whatever it is at the time. And it was one of my first practices there. They had injuries. This is December 1st. This is a team that's making a big playoff push. And we're at practice, and it's a young kid. He went to Arkansas State, tackle, who ended up playing multiple years in the league, a good player. And he was having a rough day. And some jumping off sides, and the coaches, kind of baptism by fire. They're kind of on him. And, I just did what I was taught by older veterans along the way. You see when somebody just kind of takes the pressure off of somebody and takes all the blame, because not only it helps that guy, the team sees it and they know. And I remember, because I'm a veteran, and yes, I had a Super Bowl in my back pocket that I played in. And there's I guess you could say, a respect level. And I remember I just stopped the coach because he wanted to jump him. And I just told him, I said, "Hey, that's on me. I screwed up the cadence. That's not him. That's me." And I said aloud, basically trying to tell the coach, "Hey, shut your mouth. I got it. We're good." And the coach played in the NFL, and he knew, and he stopped. And I never forget, the kid looked at me in the huddle, and he nodded like, "Thank you." Yeah. But that was done to me. I had older guys, take the blame. "No, coach, you shouldn't have thrown that ball. I told him wrong." When I was the one that screwed up, but I had a veteran. And I think you learn that along the way. I had guys that did that. Rodney Peete was the same way. I get to Carolina. He was that older veteran who had all those years in the bank. And when you can do that, you help a young kid and things like that, because confidence is key. Confidence is huge in this game. And once you get it going, it's a dangerous thing.
As Panthers fans now get to enjoy you as a broadcaster, I wonder if you've had any stories like this. I was at UNC Law School, and a friend of your friend, Mick Mixon, and he invited me to do UNC baseball, which was the sport that I played and I knew the best, on the radio. And the long story short is, after we did a lot of games together, there's a commercial break, and I'm supposed to bring us back from the commercial. And with like 10 seconds before we're back, he looks at me and he says, "DG, if you use the phrase 'back at the ballpark' one more time, I'm going to stab you in the neck." Like, of course, joking, but that's Mick. Like, with 5 seconds advance notice, he says that to me. I enjoy you as a broadcaster. I don't know if you have felt you've had a learning curve. I have no judgment other than enjoying you. Do you have any broadcasting stories along those lines?
Well, I was the same way. My first game I ever did was 2019, and it was the first game of the season. So I went to training camp that year, and Mick and I talked over the summer and when we were going to do it. And I was like, "Hey, I want to do a couple of preseason games." And he looked at me and he said, "I don't do the preseason games." He said, "We're going to do week 1. So I'm used to over preparing for something, and I have a pit in my stomach, and I'm worried. I'm like, my gosh. So we played the Rams coming off of a Super Bowl. They played 19 games the year prior. I watched all 19 games. I was beyond prepared. In the middle of the first quarter, I remember telling myself, my gosh, why did I do that? This is so different. And Mick was right. He told me, "Hey, we're having a conversation. That's all we're doing. We're having a conversation." And one thing I didn't want to do is try to talk above the listening audience. Yes, you can get technical. "Oh, they in this coverage and they played this," but like, no, just let's just talk layman's terms, what we need to discuss. And I've always asked Mick, "Hey, any pointers? What can I do wrong?" And he was quick right away to say, "Hey, watch when you say obviously, because you say, well, obviously, and I never even thought I said it during the course of a game.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. He did not do the pressure on me like he did to you about saying back at the ballpark, but just little coaching points, because that's not what I grew up doing. And so that's why I enjoy doing it so much. It's fun. I love when Luke Kuechly's in there. Jordan Gross is just a little difficult for him, but travel wise. But with Luke, he's so brilliant, smart, and you can see why. And I enjoy the playing off of each other, because I'll ask him something during the course of a game. Hey, what are you thinking here? And I think hopefully our audience appreciates it, because he'll say the same thing. Like, well, I'm thinking you're going to be looking here and doing that. And hopefully we can just kind of play off each other. But I hope people understand that we have a love for the Carolina Panthers. I mean, that's why we're doing it. I'm going to be honest. If the Houston Texans would call me to do it, that's 3 hours from my house. It'd be probably a lot easier. No, I'm a Panther. I bleed blue. I bleed Carolina blue. I want our Panthers to do well. And we have bruises at the end of the games. He sits on my right-hand side. And I hit him during the course of the game, and he hits me because we get excited or frustrated. I mean, that's just part of it. And hopefully, people enjoy the broadcast. Anish does a great job of making it flow. But we want to see our Panthers win, and we want to have success. It's a whole lot more fun talking about a win than a tough loss. I'll tell you that much.
That's another great guy, Anish Shroff. I could ask you questions all day. I admire what you did when you kind of waited for your, I believe, 2 girls to grow up a little bit as you were super dad and super husband, and then kind of jumped a little deeper into this broadcasting stuff. I'm going to get you out of here with what we call our lightning round. So they're designed for, quick 30 seconds or less answers. This lightning round with Jake Delhomme is brought to you by King Neptune Restaurant and Jimmy's Bar in Wrightsville Beach. The next time you're in the Wilmington area, please plan to have a weekend brunch or an insanely tasty dinner, best of the beach style, with our good friends Jimmy Galeese and his amazing wife Keaton. What they have done with that restaurant, how it looks after renovations, how delicious the food is, how cool the people are, and how perfect the vibe is. It's all a sight to behold. Okay, Jake, quick answers here. Place the following in order of your personal preference. Here in North Carolina, there are beach houses, lake houses, and mountain houses. What's your pecking order there?
I would say mountain houses, because I haven't done the beaches of the Carolinas yet, to be quite honest. I'm more of a, we're a Destin people, so the Gulf Coast, but I'd say mountain house.
Cool. All-time favorite family trip or trips outside the United States?
Oh, wow. It would have to be this year. We went to the Bahamas. We went to Baja Mar in the Bahamas, just my wife and my 2 daughters, and we had an absolute ball.
A few of your favorite bands or musicians?
Ooh, man, I'm wild. Love Kenny Chesney. Love Luke Combs. Oh, gosh. I mean, you're going to laugh. Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, Ray Charles, Otis Redding. I mean, I can go all over the place.
Yeah, you're multidimensional there. Any of these, a favorite actor, a favorite actress? You don't have to hit all these. An author, an artist, any of those?
Love John Grisham books. I've read the majority of those. Actresses and actors. Al Pacino, big Al Pacino fan. Gene Hackman, always liked him. Tom Cruise. Yeah, so I have an actresses. Wow. I don't know if I have a favorite actress, that I can think off the top of my head.
Our main sponsor is the North Carolina Pork Council. So we always ask the question, at some point you had to learn, like, Eastern barbecue here in North Carolina is one way, Western style is another way. Of course, you could pick bacon or any other pork chops or pork product. Do you have a favorite pork product, and do you have a choice between Eastern style and Western style barbecue the way they make it here in North Carolina?
I don't have a favorite between Eastern and Western, and my favorite pork would be a cracklin. Do you know what a cracklin is?
I don't.
That's a South Louisiana thing, man. That is fried. It's fried pork skin. That's what it is. It's called cracklins. And so I come from we're down in the South in Louisiana. I'd like to think we cook better than any other place in the world, but so I can't say about the pork, the Eastern or the Western side. But yeah, crackling is probably it's not that healthy. I can promise you that, but it tastes pretty good.
Hey, that's the most creative answer we've had. That's one question we ask of all of our guests. So you get bonus points for creativity. Jake, thank you very much. I know I kept you a little bit long, but you're a lot of fun, man. It's great to have you as part of our North Carolina sports culture, and proud to have you, of course, as a guest here on the David Glenn Show. Thank you for the time, as always.
Well, thanks for having me, and I promise, Panther fans, it's going to come. We're just going to have a little patience, Bill, but it's going to come.
Amen. As we thank Jake for his time here on the David Glenn Show and jump back into all sorts of other fun stuff, college and pro, one quick reminder, in sports, we talk a lot about impact players who make a positive difference. And when it comes to our state's economy, the North Carolina pork industry is a true MVP. Each year, the pork industry plays an important role in supporting rural communities across our state. It contributes more than $10 billion a year to the North Carolina economy and supports more than 44,000 jobs. Learn more about their positive impact at ncpork.org. That's the North Carolina Pork Council, the foundational partner of the North Carolina Sports Network. We will be back right after this.
I wasn't born a leader.
It wasn't given to me.
I couldn't buy it.
How'd I get here?
I decided.
I decided.
I decided.
I decided.
Decide to lead as an Army officer.
Moving on, as the calendar is about to turn to October, I wanted to share some quick thoughts, just from sports fan to fellow sports fan, about two of the highlights of the upcoming sports schedule. Number one, the Ryder Cup of golf. I know not everyone who likes the show is a big golf fan, or even a golf fan at all for that matter. But as I've said many times previously, if you like nail-biting drama, if you like representing your country style competitions and complications, if you like the human element of sports, if you like to see multimillionaires who play a mostly individualistic sport get extremely nervous while playing in the world's best team-oriented golf event, this could be for you. I think the Ryder Cup has evolved over the years into something that brings as much excitement and drama as anything in the history of golf, including the 4 major championships. In fact, I think these top golfers these days, who again are almost all multimillionaires, will tell you that the team element and the match play aspect of the Ryder Cup, plus representing your country in the case of the Americans, or representing your continent in the case of the Europeans, combine to make this event even more nerve-wracking and pressure-packed, at least in emotional ways, than just about anything. Even a multi-million-dollar putt in a major championship when you're playing only, in air quotes, for some combination of yourself, your caddy, your family, and your bank account. It is just different at the Ryder Cup, and it has not always been that way. There was once a 50-year stretch of the Ryder Cup from 1933, soon after it was created, all the way to 1983, when the European side won only a single time over those 5 decades. And remember, this event is played every 2 years, so that's an awful lot of American victories, one after another after another. However, listen to these numbers starting in 1985. It's been 11 wins for the Euros, only 6 wins for the Americans, and 1 tie. In these last 40 years now, Team USA has won only a single Ryder Cup held on European soil, where it is again this year. That was way back in 1993, or 30 full years ago. That is a long time, especially for the country that dominated this event for so long. Zach Johnson is the U.S. captain this time. He does have the number 1 ranked golfer in the world, Scottie Scheffler, on his side. But golfers 2, 3, and 4 in the world rankings, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, and Victor Hovland, will be representing the other side. Americans Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, Max Homa, Brian Harman, and Wyndham Clark are also top 10 in the world rankings, although they're not quite viewed in the same way as guys like Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson were when they were representing Team USA back in the day. And remember, Clark, Harman, and Homa will be playing in this pressure-packed event for the first time. With his captain's picks, Johnson recently selected Ryder Cup veterans Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, Ricky Fowler, and struggling of late Justin Thomas, plus first-timer Sam Burns. Of the Americans' 8 experienced Ryder Cup golfers, all but Fowler have winning records in the event. That sounds like a nice starting point as the Americans, longtime favorites, turn perhaps unlikely underdogs, especially when it's on European soil, Italy this time, try to make a different kind of Ryder Cup history this weekend. Number 2 is the Major League Baseball playoffs. As many of you know, baseball was my first love. It's the game I played for 20 years, from 5 years old until 24 years old. And it's the game I know and understand best as a former left-handed pitcher and first baseman. My original favorite team in any sports as a young boy, while growing up in Philadelphia and later in the Philly suburbs, was the Philadelphia Phillies. I was there in person with my father and some neighbors in 1980 as a 12-year-old, as the Phillies, who had existed for almost 100 years but had never previously won the World Series. You think that sports-passionate town of Philly was jacked up for that event? They were. The Phillies won that clinching game I attended from that 1980 World Series against the Kansas City Royals. And to this moment, guys, about 43 years later, that remains one of my favorite moments as an in-person sports spectator, even as someone who's been paid to write and talk about sports for the last 30-plus years. While Major League Baseball is the one, of course, top-level sport where we don't have our own franchise here in North Carolina. Shout out to the Durham Bulls and the Charlotte Knights. I love you both as two of the great AAA or minor league ball clubs in the entire country. I long ago came to understand that the Atlanta Braves have the most fans among MLB teams in our state. As we speak, with the start of the 2023 baseball playoffs just about here, the Braves are the Las Vegas favorite to win it all this time, followed in order by the LA Dodgers, the reborn Baltimore Orioles, the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros, the Tampa Bay Rays, and yes, eventually, my Philadelphia Phillies. One fun fact worth sharing as the postseason gets underway. Unlike in some other sports, the team with the best regular season record in Major League Baseball does not, N-O-T, not, have a dominant track record for going on from that stunning regular season and then just winning the World Series. This year, that team would be the Braves, of course, who have posted more than 100 regular season wins. In what's called the wild card era, meaning this more expansive playoff format, since 1995, there have been 28 MLB seasons played, and only 7 times, that means 25% of the time, 7 out of 28, did that winningest team from the regular season go on to win the World Series. I offer that factoid in peace, not as a hex on the Atlanta Braves, who did win it all. We all saw it in 1995 and 2021, just a couple years ago. I offer it rather as a historical footnote that gives all the playoff teams, including my Phillies and everybody else, plenty of hope, even if they're among the postseason underdogs. I've always thought that unpredictability makes it a lot more fun, at least for most. Okay, before we move on, some quick thanks to our longstanding partners here at the DG Show and the North Carolina Sports Network as we proceed and tackle our 3-to-C games and other college football details. I'm speaking of our friends at XL Moving and Storage, now celebrating their 25th anniversary this year. As an allied van lines agent, they can help you with your moving and storage needs here in North Carolina and really around the globe. The Lawson Insurance Group, where the Lawson brothers and their staff are ready to help you all across North Carolina, just as they've already helped me, my family, and my company save thousands of dollars on our various policies with your personal and or commercial insurance needs. Jimmy's Bar and King Neptune Restaurant, my personal home away from home in Wrightsville Beach. I get rave reviews just about every time one of our viewers, listeners, or readers tells me about his or her first visit to that incredible place there at the beach. And inevitably, there are return visits to King Neptune after that. The Original Salt Works, a legendary breakfast and lunch place in Wilmington where Mike Waddell and I recently had lunch one day, then breakfast the next day. Those are two very creative and different menus if you haven't been there. Shout out to Bob Hubbard for his hospitality and ongoing support. And our friends at Sport Clips, now with more than 70 locations across the great state of North Carolina. Ask for the MVP treatment if you get a chance. I ask for it, and I'm glad I did every time. As we thank all of them, we also ask you to support us here at this new version of the DG Show by patronizing our sponsors as often as possible. It's not even a slight exaggeration to say that without them, and in a different way without you, we wouldn't have the honor of sharing time with you on these new platforms here at the DG Show and the North Carolina Sports Network. With that, we'll be back right after this.
It's your time to make a greater impact. U.S. Army Reserve.
Finally today, as we encourage you to check out our weekly Old North State Tailgate podcast, which drops once a week during college football season and allows for a deeper dive into last weekend's results and this week's action, we move on to one of our weekly features, which I call 3 to See, meaning 3 games that rank among those most worth watching this weekend, with, of course, a heavy dose of state of North Carolina and ACC angles, as you might guess or expect. Unlike last week, when there was just no way anyone could ignore Colorado, Oregon, or Ohio State, Notre Dame, or FSU, Clemson, those big games on the national schedule, which did all end up providing plenty of drama and absolutely enormous TV audiences. Check out my articles on that topic at ncsportsnetwork.com if you get a chance. This week's focus returns to some compelling matchups much closer to home. For the record, if you're curious, briefly, the best national matchups this week, and I mean besides Notre Dame Duke right here in our backyard, which we'll get to very shortly, they include number 1 Georgia, Bulldogs are 4-0, visiting 3-1 Auburn. Number 8 Southern Cal, undefeated at 4-0, visits 3-1 Colorado. How can you not be curious about how Deion Sanders' team will handle that one as against Oregon, a heavy underdog, the Buffaloes. Also, number 24 Kansas is 4-0 as it visits number 3 Texas, also 4-0. With each passing week, we'll have fewer and fewer opportunities to see one unbeaten team go head-to-head against another unbeaten team. So while I think the Longhorns are going to smash the Jayhawks, their combined 8-0 records offer at least some intrigue there. Okay, moving on. Here are our 3 to See here in week 5 of college football season. 3 to See game number 1 in our backyard. 4-1 Notre Dame, number 11 in the polls, visits 4-0 Duke, number 17 in the AP poll. That is Saturday night, 7:30, ABC, national TV. When Duke hosted Clemson in that Labor Day night season opener on national TV, the Blue Devils were a 2-touchdown underdog before posting a victory that completely stunned the college football world. Against Notre Dame, which just went toe-to-toe with number 4 Ohio State before losing on the final play of the game, the Devils are only a 6-point underdog. That is a massive sign of respect toward Duke football, and it's a reflection of what Mike Elko has built in a very short period of time in Durham. Is Notre Dame the more talented team? Probably. Could the Devils win anyway? Sure they could. Remember, Duke has posted a top 25 season only one time in the last 60 years, 6 decades. That was back in 2013 under David Cutcliffe. Now the 17th ranked Blue Devils have a legitimate chance to do that again this year, and a win over number 11 Notre Dame obviously would be a huge step in that direction. This game is worth watching in part because each team has a truly outstanding quarterback. Former Wake Forest star Sam Hartman, a 6th-year senior who, remember, left the Demon Deacons in part because he wanted to run a pro-style offense to prepare him better for the NFL, leads the 4-1 Fighting Irish, who definitely will try to run the ball down the Blue Devils' throats and then get Hartman to complement that ground and pound approach with his well-developed passing prowess. Riley Leonard, a Cutcliffe signee who obviously stayed in Durham through the coaching change to Elko, is a junior now in his second season as Duke's starter. Hartman runs a little bit, but is much more of a thrower. Leonard is definitely a dual threat QB, as he showed with some huge plays in the Devils' win over Clemson. Through 4 games, Riley Leonard actually has thrown for less than 200 yards per game, which ranks him only 12th in the ACC. But he also is among the top 12 rushers in the ACC at about 60 yards per game on a list that, as you'd imagine, obviously is dominated by, running backs. Both Notre Dame and Duke have played truly great defense all season. Both teams have dominated their opponents in those 4 victories. Duke's average score so far this year is a stunning 37-9. Duke even beat its toughest opponent so far, Clemson, by that 28-7 margin. Notre Dame did lose 17-14 to Ohio State last week, but the Irish beat their next toughest opponent in my eyes, NC State, pretty handily in Raleigh. That one was 45-24. If Duke has an edge in this game, it may be on special teams. Porter Wilson is an elite punter. Todd Polino has kicked some long field goals. And veteran wide receiver Jalen Calhoun is also a really dangerous guy on punt returns. The biggest challenge for the Blue Devils, as I see it, is that Notre Dame has an absolutely enormous, athletic, skilled offensive line, including a future first-round NFL pick in left tackle Joe Alt. The running back, Audric Estime, 5'11", 225. He's a really tough, rugged guy who ran for 134 yards against a very solid NC State defense, including an 80-yarder for a TD right after the lightning delay in that game. One guarantee is that the Irish will keep pounding Duke with their tailbacks unless and until the Devils can slow that down. The big question, how will Duke's front 7 hold up against the best offensive line they've faced this season and maybe the best they've faced in their entire college careers? Can they pressure Hartman on passing plays? Can they slow Estime in the running game? The Devils have 4 very experienced guys on that defensive line, including our recent guest, Dwayne Carter, at one of the tackle positions, but they're going to need their linebackers to make a lot of plays too if they're going to pull off another upset. 3-C, game number 2. Again, here in our backyard, we're bringing our Old North State tailgate and traveling sports circus to this one. More on that in a minute. 4-0 Louisville visits 3-1 NC State Friday night, 7 o'clock. ESPN, national TV in what is a rare window. Not much competition in the college football ranks when you play on a Friday night. The Wolfpack, which struggled against lowly Virginia last Friday, before winning a 24-21 squeaker against the Wahoos in Charlottesville, is a 3-point underdog at home against Louisville in this national spotlight game. 2 quick side notes heading into this one. Number 1, Wolfpack coach Dave Doran is 75-55 in his 11 years at NC State. That means he's only 2 wins away from tying legendary coach Earl Edwards as the program's all-time wins leader. Number 2, NFL legend Bill Cowher, the only former NC State football player in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, will be on hand at Carter Finley Stadium Friday night as he is officially inducted into the Wolfpack's Ring of Honor between the first and second quarters of the game against the Cardinals. I mentioned the Bill Cowher angle in part because I know how much Wolfpack Nation admires, respects, reveres, and loves him. When I had him on my radio show over the years, Wolfpack Nation went nuts, and it was fun to see. Those folks are going to be very loud and supremely supportive as Cowher joins essentially the school's other gridiron immortals, we'll call them. At the same time, I honestly think that same Wolfpack Nation, one of the loudest and most passionate fan bases I have encountered in my 37 years now covering college sports, is going to have to be part of the solution if the Wolfpack is going to beat the 4-0 Cardinals, who have been absolutely scorching their opponents offensively under first-year coach Jeff Brom, the former Louisville quarterback who was lured back home after some successful years as the head coach at Purdue in the Big Ten. There's no getting around Louisville's offensive numbers. Wait till you hear these. They're crazy good. Louisville is averaging 43 points per game through that 4-0 start against Georgia Tech, 39-34. They crushed Murray State, 56-zip. Grinder against Indiana, 21-14. And then another blowout against Boston College. That was a 56-28 demolition by the Cardinals. Statistically for now, The Cards actually have the best rushing offense in the ACC. That's led by a brilliant running back named Jawar Jordan. He's averaging an ACC best 120 yards per game. And get this, for now, he is at almost 10 yards per carry. And the Cardinals have the best passing offense in the ACC, led by a sixth-year senior quarterback in Jack Plummer, a guy who spent 4 years learning Jeff Brom's system at Purdue. It's easy to forget that because Jack Plummer was the starter for the Cal Bears out in Pac-12 country last year. But the 4 years prior to that, he was learning Jeff Brom's system with the Boilermakers. Also parting that passing attack is Georgia State transfer wide receiver Jamari Thrash. I mention him because he's number 2 right now among all ACC pass catchers at about 100 yards per game. As you might have guessed by now, Louisville leads the ACC in total offense at 542 yards per game, and the Cardinals rank among the top 10 teams nationally in both points per game and yards per game. Obviously, it is a lot harder to run any offense when you can't hear each other. That's where Wolfpack Nation comes in. And it's a lot harder to run your offense against a strong defense, obviously. While State has had plenty of problems this season and complications offensively, it's actually been a pretty solid team overall on defense, and I would argue that the Wolfpack presents the toughest defense Louisville has faced so far this season. My script for an NC State victory goes this way. A loud Wolfpack Nation plus Tony Gibson's well-coached defense equals create some turnovers. Plant a seed of doubt in your opponent, which is on the road. Louisville's only played away from home twice, and the first one was a nail-biter against Georgia Tech at the NFL Stadium in Atlanta. You also can give your offense decent field position if you play well on defense. Maybe even score on defense to take some pressure off of that Wolfpack offense, which hasn't been able to click consistently so far this year. State has a really solid defensive line. Davin Vance, C.J. Clark, Savion Jackson on the three-man front. They have a heat-seeking missile at linebacker in Peyton Wilson, already an all-ACC player. They have another star in cornerback Aiden White. They have had an unfortunate number of injuries, especially at safety, which does complicate things, but it is a very strong group defensively overall. The Wolfpack has won 17 of its last 19 games at Carter Finley Stadium. Friday night against Louisville is what they call a blackout game for the Pack, as the team will wear black uniforms that, get this, will have glow-in-the-dark numbers, cleats, and gloves. Maybe that, along with Bill Cowher's honor, will add to the electricity and noise at Carter Finley Stadium. Last thing, Louisville is not a great defensive team. Obviously, Wolfpack quarterback Brennan Armstrong needs a lot more help from every direction right now. In a traditional offense, it's not a great sign when your quarterback leads the team in rushing, as Armstrong does. Other than right tackle Timothy McKay, the line hasn't been great. At tailback, we've already seen starter Jordan Houston leave the team. Then his successor, freshman Kendrick Raphael, go down with an injury. Can sophomore Michael Allen be part of the solution? Somebody else. And at wide receiver, it was good to see Casey Concepcion, a guy we've been talking about since August, have a breakout game as a freshman in Charlottesville with 6 catches for 116 yards and 2 TDs. Julian Gray, who's a wideout and kick return guy, also has made some big plays in recent weeks. It's going to take the proverbial team effort, but I believe the Pack can get it done against Louisville. 3-C, game number 3, our final one for this weekend. 4-0 William and Mary, which is number 4 in the FCS coaches poll, visits 2-2 Elon. That's Saturday, 2 o'clock. Flow Sports, our Old North State tailgate and traveling sports circus, also will be a part of this one as part of a very rare tailgate tour doubleheader. Both of these teams are undefeated in Coastal Athletic Association play. The Phoenix was a top 25 squad and an FCS playoff team last year, and they may be again this season. The Tribe, given that number 4 ranking I just mentioned, obviously is considered one of the top FCS teams in the entire nation as it visits Rhodes Stadium on Saturday. When Elon made the FCS playoffs last year, that was just its 4th trip there in school history. And now the Phoenix is 13-5 in their last 18 CAA games, which is a tribute to Coach Trisciani and his staff. Trish has been a part of 3 of Elon's 4 all-time FCS playoff appearances. 2 as the defensive coordinator under Kurt Signetti, who's now the head coach at James Madison, which has made the jump to the FBS ranks. And then last year, of course, Coach Trish was the head coach of the Phoenix. Last season, under former UVA head coach Mike London, William and Mary went 11-2, won the CAA, made the FCS playoff quarterfinals, and finished in the top 10 of the national FCS rankings. The Tribe was named this summer as the preseason favorite in the CAA, and that came in a vote of the league's head coaches, not the media. London is in year 5 at William and Mary. Trisciani is in year 5 as the head coach at Elon, again after those 2 years as defensive coordinator. Jalen Hampton, a Virginia Tech transfer, clearly has found a home at Elon as a running back. He was third team All-CAA last season, and he's been outstanding again this year, including with 33 carries for 169 yards and all 4 of the Phoenix's touchdowns in their 28-24 win at Campbell last week. Senior wideout Jordan Bonner, formerly of Purdue. Tight end John Carlos Miller II from Greensboro Dudley High School. Wide receiver and kick return man Chandler Brayboy, and senior safety and punt return master Bo Sanders are among the other key guys to watch for the Phoenix. William and Mary has a dual-threat quarterback in Darius Wilson, a big-time running back in Bronson Yoder, and 9 starters back from an offense that last year was third in all the FCS ranks in rushing and averaged 34 points per game. Defensively, through their 4-0 start, the Tribe gave up only 10 points per game, so obviously this is a tough climb for Elon. Here's a probable key to the game. William and Mary is probably going to stack the line of scrimmage defensively against Elon, knowing the damage that Jalen Hampton and that Phoenix rushing attack can do and did against Campbell. Will Elon quarterback Matthew Downing or one of his backups be able to make the Tribe pay for that tactic? We will see on Saturday afternoon at Rhodes Stadium. Okay, as we come down the stretch on today's program, a quick note about our brand new Old North State Tailgate and Traveling Sports Circus, which already has had 6 tour stops. Cary, Wrightsville Beach, Charlotte, Greensboro, Boone, and then Mount Airy, North Carolina. Last week, our Mike Waddell took our football, toss, tents, prizes, and traveling circus to one of his favorite longtime traditions, the places in North Carolina where a specific high school football game really matters to a lot of people in a local community. He was part of the fun and festivities at the Star Mount Airy game. It was then a matchup of highly regarded and both undefeated rivals. That was last Friday night in Mount Airy, which is way up there near the Virginia border, northwest of Winston-Salem. This week, we're not only back in the college football ranks, we're back with that extremely rare Tailgate Tour doubleheader. Early Friday evening, that means the hours leading up to the nationally televised 7 o'clock game between 4-0 Louisville and 3-1 NC State at Carter Finley Stadium. We'll have our tents and games set up at Backyard Bistro right across the street from Carter Finley. Then, please come see us. Then, late Saturday morning and early afternoon, we'll be back at Elon University, another of our favorite stops over this last decade or so, as Coach Trish and the Phoenix host number 4 William and Mary. For more details on those tour stops and the rest of our 2023 schedule, which truly is taking us from the beach to the mountains and most other places you'd like to visit in between, please follow the Tailgate on Twitter. That is at ONS Tailgate, representing Old North State Tailgate. Again, at ONS Tailgate. Or you can visit our website, ncsportsnetwork.com. One last thing is our weekly reminder. Please subscribe to our official YouTube channel, Instagram, and Twitter accounts here at the North Carolina Sports Network. That social media handle is at THENC Sportsnet, at the NC Sportsnet. Again, the website is a little different, ncsportsnetwork.com. Reminder that when you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you're eligible for all sorts of cool prizes. And we have upcoming prizes to give away. Could be Hurricanes tickets, Panthers tickets, Hornets tickets later this year, college tickets, football, basketball, or otherwise, or maybe just a great concert that we spring for, or a wonderful meal at the Oak here in Raleigh, or King Neptune in Wrightsville Beach, or somewhere else across our great state. As we hit 750, 1,000, and other thresholds, we're going to pull randomly a prize winner. And I can be a part of that prize, or you can go on your own. Just remember that whether you're subscriber number 1 or subscriber number 2,000, you do remain eligible for all the prizes that we give out in the coming months and weeks here on The David Glenn Show. That will do it for today's edition of the program. The David Glenn Show is an exclusive production of the North Carolina Sports Network. Executive producer and technical director, Mike Waddell. The founding partner of NCSN is the North Carolina Pork Council. Thanks again for being with us, everybody. Have a great week. See you next time.